I don't want to offend anyone in any way at all. And I told you already that when I was a younger faculty member, I used to take very ill to people telling me on how to live my academic life. And academics are that way. All self-respecting academics actually are quite repulsive to any such advice. But when I landed at MIT, one of the guys who was responsible for my productive career there asked me to see a video lecture, a recorded lecture by someone called Dave Patterson. Dave Patterson is a professor at Berkeley. He's the guy who invented risk computing. Most of you would understand this. And also RAID storages. So he's actually a guy who's had profound impact on computing. He's also written that book, Quantitative Methods of Computer Architecture, which some of you must have read, some of you now teach. You know, I grew up reading that book. So finally, this was Dave's lecture that he wanted me to see. And Dave's lecture was how to have a bad research career. Okay, and that's it was sort of, he figured it out. You know, clearly faculty and students at Berkeley also have big egos, so he didn't want to tread on them. So it was a funny talk in his way to basically tell people on how to do great research. And the title of the talk is How to Have Bad Research Career. So my duty was to look at that talk, plagiarize it, make my own talk out of it so that I can give it to incoming good grad students at MIT, which I used to do. I've done this for 3 years there. And even though I can't give that entire talk here, this audience is far more sophisticated for that kind of talk. But here's my 2 bits about a life as an academic. I think your classroom is really your theater. That's where you inspire students. You can almost develop a cult following, and I know people who've developed cult followings in their life just by being a theatrical, great professor in a classroom. So you must do that, and that's the value that you get out of that. You get an opportunity in front of very impressionable minds to be funny, to be articulate, you know, to be inspirational. And that's what a great lecturer is. You're certainly imparting some knowledge also in that classroom, but these are the 3 most important aspects. You have to be funny, you have to be articulate, and you have to be inspirational, in that order almost. In fact, when I was preparing for my first lecture to be given at Cambridge, I think, my advisor told me, have you thought of 3 jokes that you want to tell in the class? I said, no. He said, memorize those 3 jokes. The rest of it will take care of itself. And he was spot on. I don't do any talk, any lecture without knowing the 3 jokes that I'm going to tell in that session. So I think it's actually really important. And it's quite subtle also, but very important to be able to be funny in a classroom, to be able to articulate your thoughts well, and then to be inspirational. The rest of it always takes care of itself. You didn't get this far without being technically competent. So that part, no one needs to worry about anymore. Okay? So those are the 3 things that you need to do in a class. And if you do it well, you will develop a cult following almost of students who would want to work day and night on problems that are of interest to you, that are of interest to the society. And that's how you advance your career. Which brings me to the next issue, that the utility of a classroom for someone like me, and this is a very selfish view, is essentially to harvest, to cultivate, and to extract good minds to come and work on research problems that are important to me. Okay. And you know, we had this joke at MIT where we said that you teach a course just so that you can keep a job, so that you can do research. Okay. And that's the view of a research university. This is that university. I've never spoken to any one of you about how well or poorly you teach. That takes care of itself. I do get your reviews, and occasionally we talk, and we talk about things that you could do to be more likable in a classroom, and that's essentially all there is to it. But I do talk to you about research. And in research also, and it's unfortunate, as the world moved from the European model of research, started Germany, spill over in Britain, and so on and so forth, where it was all about independent scholarship and about substantial research output, to the more mechanized tenure track American model, people started gaming the academic system. I typically never talk about this, but that's the honest truth. You will get very few people articulated the way I am, because it's not a popular view. But what has happened in academics, as we've started conferences and journals and really have made rules around tenure and who can get tenure and what should be output of a tenure track professor, etc., etc. This system has become very open to gaming. There are communities that publish on seemingly hot topics that are sort of the flavor of the month or become a fad or a bandwagon on which you hop on, who cite each other. You could really meet academics who've had 500 publications. I've met such academics, thousands of citations, but have essentially never moved the needle on any impact in the real world. So that's really serious. That is a problem that ails sort of this new model of research that has emerged from this. The reason the world continues to still move on is because they still have Stanfords and MITs and Berkeleys, where clearly they're open to that gaming, but they try and shut down all these doors. So when I went to MIT, the guy who was assigned to talking to me about doing good research said, I hope you will not end up doing bit twiddling research. That's the word that he used. He said, I hope that you will not do bit twiddling research. Now this is research where I can improve a system by 2% or 5% and get a paper, a scientifically rigorous but otherwise useless paper in a high impact factor journal. That's the gaming of the system. Scientifically rigorous paper that cannot be rejected because of the work, because of the analysis, because of the mathematics, because of the scientific rigor that backs that paper. But otherwise is a totally useless piece of paper, right? And that is something that ails the academic system, not here alone, but also in some of the best universities. But the best of the best have figured out on how to avoid people gaming this system. Now the reason I mention this is because this country is certainly very prone to gaming of the system. And nothing pains me more than see people who come back to this country and get absorbed in this game, where we continue to publish rubbish output, academic output, in the hopes of trying to advance our careers, pad our CV, and so on and so forth. The professor that I'm talking about at MIT, who said, I hope that you won't do bit twiddling research, also happened to be the chair of the tenure committee at the Electrical Engineering and Computer Science department. And I used to be Chota, who would collate and compile results so that he can then make a case for someone to get tenured or not. So I would sit there in the corner of his office and would make Excel sheets on how many publications and what impact factors and how many citations and this crap and that. And one day he turned around and I was trying to argue for a professor and who I really liked and said, here is a professor, he's published in all the top conferences and journals in those computer networks in his field, and he has all these citations and he has all this great work that he's done. He must get tenured. And he said, Umer, you must always know that the tenure committees can read as well as count, right? So don't just assume that we are going to just count the number of publications and count the number of citations. We are quite capable of reading the papers also, right? And that's a very important thing to internalize, to something that you hold dear to you. In Pakistan, there's no gatekeeping. There can't be any gatekeeping. Whatever best we could find in Pakistan, a large number of them happen to be in this room. Right? And you know how selective we are in attracting people to this university. Right? We define whatever bar we'll define. Even if we did not define it, we'll still be doing better than all the universities in Pakistan. But it is largely up to us to make sure that the academics that we show we show a lot of respect to our academic output. Whatever we publish is certainly scientifically rigorous, is good science, but also has real impact, solves a real problem, a problem that's big enough for you to devote a certain time in your life to solve it, which is the most precious commodity that you have at your disposal. You're all brilliant. You all have great academic careers. You are all capable of publishing great papers. The only question is, are you spending your life well or not? And I've seen a lot of people after talks like this bail out of academic careers also and sort of move to Googles and Microsofts or start companies and say, this is all bogus stuff. I am not doing this anymore. I'm going to go out, strike on my own, and do great stuff in life. Because once you look back, and you could really summarize someone's entire academic career in maybe 1, 2, or 3 papers that they published. I've just summarized Dave Patterson's entire bloody academic career in 2 papers that he published. One was risk computing, the other was RAID, and this happened 30 years ago. Right? And he's a professor at Berkeley. So this really has to be something that you keep close to you. You keep dear to your principles on how to do great research, how to build a great academic career, because that's something that you can only do yourselves. No one can tell you, no one can teach you, no one can police this. This system is very open to gaming. Okay, so that's my advice, so to speak. That's also a principle that I live by. I decided about 5-10 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, that I will not write a research paper unless something that I do is used by 10,000 people. Now that's a difficult goal to set for oneself, but I don't publish unless that assumption is true. Now it has served me well. I'm a systems guy, so I can choose to live that way. There are people who are brilliant theoretical computer scientists and brilliant mathematicians and brilliant management people in this audience. So I don't know what that number is going to be for you. That number is so dear to me that last time I was traveling to US and I met with 2 professors whose tenure letters I had written and saw potential of wanting to do great things. One of whom eventually moved from Berkeley to another university on the East Coast. And I broached this idea. Is Ali Agha here? And I broached this subject with them, and Ali has certainly been a recipient of this idea also, that we should start a 10K conference in computer science. A 10K conference would be only systems that have been used by 10,000 people should bother writing a paper for this venue. Ali and I have spoken about this. I will be lobbying for this again in my trip to US, as I did in my last one. I think we'll make it happen. We'll do a 10K conference in computer science where systems that have been used by 10,000 people, only those systems are eligible to get published here. But that's a very systems, provincial, myopic view of my world. Your world is different. There are economists here, there are people in management, there are people do electrical engineering, theoretical, hardcore, seriously theoretical work. I don't know what that mire for you is going to be. But that would have to come from within. No tenure committee, no university policy, no remuneration, no university, no academic system can enforce that on you, because it will always be open to gaming. So that's my advice to people, some people who are actually much more accomplished and wise than I am. But given that they insisted that I come here, I wasn't planning to, that I come here. This is what I wanted to share with you. It's certainly a principle that I live by. I hope that you live by this principle. All of you are successful people already. It is now just a decision between living a respectable life and living a great life. And I hope that you will choose the latter. That's my input. That's my input. But thank you so much for organizing this wonderful event today, and for a wonderful set of speakers to come and talk to you. I have to run off and go back to my drudge, which isn't great. Which I wish I could be part of this room rather than signing files, authorizing semi-legit things in my bureaucratic role that I unfortunately have. But I wish you well. Thank you for organizing this. This university is certainly coming of age, and I see great things happening here. Thank you, sir.